Welcome back, guys. It is home makeover time. Let's go ahead and get started. In today's video, we are doing part 2 of the gym makeover. Now, I do have a part 1, so if you're like me and you like to see things from start to beginning, kind of more in detail, I will have that linked in the description so you can go check it out. But if you aren't really into that and you just want a quick synopsis of where we started and how we got here and what happens next, I'll give you the rundown. We bought our new house. We started by scraping all of the popcorn ceilings throughout the entire thing. We had a lovely friend come help us do skim coats and do all of that so that we could sand and paint all of our ceilings. That was done in every single room, including the room that we are now using as a home gym. This is like a bonus living room or home office for most people, but we like to have our home gym, especially for my boyfriend Austin, who is very into his workouts. It's kind of like it's his thing. It's his de-stressor. It's what his go-to. So we are trying to make this his dream gym. So we started by finishing the ceilings, cleaning all of that up, throwing some paint on the wall. We are using Sherwin-Williams Tricorn Black in flat. Now, we did start out at first with satin for reasons of cleaning and blah blah blah, but once we put it on the wall, it was very reflective and shiny and just not at all what we were going for. So I tried to surprise him while he was at work and went and bought the flat, put it on the wall, and it looks 1,000 times better. And by try to surprise him, I mean I ended up doing 3 coats to cover all of that shine from underneath and make sure that there's no brush strokes or anything showing. So I got the first coat on before he got back home. After we did that, at that point, I had already painted the trim. I was just using this Behr product here for all of the trim in the room, and then also had put down our flooring. Now, we do have nice hardwood floors in the home, but I don't want that to get beat up and banged up by machinery, and I want it to be nice and cushiony. I want it to be a good space for Austin to be able to work out barefoot if he wants to, or we have gym shoes. I explained that in the last video. We have shoes specific for in the house that don't go anywhere but in the house because my daughter does spend a lot of time on the floor as she does have special needs. So we try to keep it nice and clean. By doing that, we ended up using some foam puzzle pieces. Those, they're like the black ones that just kind of like puzzle together and take up the floor. This did come from our previous home gym, so we've been using these for several years. They've held up great. We got them from one of our local hardware stores. By local, I mean regional. I'm pretty sure Menards is where he got them, but don't quote me on that because it's been a while. So yeah, I did puzzle all of that together. If you want a more detail of like how exactly I did that, again, that's in the first video of measurements and cutting and kind of how it all came together. And then from there, we went ahead and installed our new light. We did have a regular ceiling fan in there. We wanted one a little bit smaller, kind of went more with the vibe of what we were going for. And that way it just gives him more arm room. He's taller than I am, so for me, it doesn't matter. But if he's going to do jumping jacks or anything like that, where he'd be stretched tall, don't want him hitting the fan while he's doing it. So I think that catches you up to where we were. You know, we already put the equipment in the gym so they could be used until it was finished, but from there we still had some work to do. So we did end up doing an accent wall. Don't know if you've seen the slatted wood accent walls, but that's what we wanted to do on the one corner to give a nice focal point. So we went and picked up this plywood from our local hardware. Like I said, we got it from Menards. You can see here what kind it is because I don't remember off the top of my head, and we picked up 2 sheets of that. From there, I kind of had all of the measurements out of what I wanted. I knew I wanted 2-inch slats with 1 inch in between, and I had gone ahead and calculated how many I would need. And I don't want it to just be flat on one wall. I want it to kind of go around the corner and give it more, you know, not that flat 2D look. So we set up the saw, we went outside, and we were going to rip them into 2-inch slats. Now this is a 4x8 and it was very hard to manage. So what we did was cut it in half first. So we cut 2 sections, 2-foot sections. That way we can rip those individually and make it a lot more manageable and easier to handle. So we just went through and did that until we had all of the slats that we needed. And then we also did a 1-inch, went ahead and ripped a 1-inch board, and that was going to be our spacer. From there, I was ready to paint them up. So I wanted to paint them before they went on the wall, since I am using two different colors. I didn't want to have to cut in all of that. It would have taken me so much longer. So I just took a small roller and painted these up with the same color that I used for the trim. That way it would all match. I ended up doing 2 coats on that, and then we needed to go ahead and start measuring to cut them down. Now, the reason why I did not cut them all to the same length at first at one time, yes, that would have been easier, but we do live in a 1980s home, and so some settling has happened, so not everything is quite as lined up as it needs to be, and I didn't want to rip them all at one height and then it not be the height that I needed. So what I did was kind of had him help me measure like in increments. So okay, these 3 boards, what's that? These 3 boards, what's that? That way I was way closer on my cuts than I would have been if I would just taken the first measurement that I had. This may not be necessary for everyone, and they weren't that different, but I would have noticed, he would have noticed, so this is why we did those extra steps. Once I got those measurements, we then needed to go ahead and get a cabinet hung. So I picked this cabinet up from Harbor Freight. It is from, I think the brand is US General, and I just wanted some place to store all of our extra things like leg bands, basically all of our bands, any of that extra equipment that's just kind of laying around and needing a spot. Really wanted it to have one. So what we needed to do before we started tacking up any boards or making any more cuts was hang this cabinet. Now we wanted to make sure it was hung to the studs, so what we did was go ahead and use, we had ripped these 2.5-inch boards. I had cut those down to the length of the cabinet and painted them black, the same color as the wall, so that we could go ahead and adhere those to the studs and then place the cabinet onto it. So we got that all situated to where we knew the cabinet could go up, and then I went ahead and did measurements from, my baseboards to that black, to the black wood, and then from the crown molding to the black, and I cut pieces to fit into there. Now you have to be more careful if you aren't doing it one continuous piece, because you can get off, from your top to your bottom, so you want to make sure everything is lining up. And I will say, I started tacking these on and everything was going great. So what I was doing is I put the first one up, I spaced it from the wall because I knew I wanted it to be measured from the wall. And then I leveled it out and I went from there on tacking this up with, I'm just using a brad nailer that's hooked to an air compressor, and things were going great. The bottom went well, the top was going well. Somewhere between like midway on the top half of it, I had 2 spacers from the same board that I had cut. So I had cut one, I cut one to 4 foot that would fit the bottom wall and the full length. I cut one at 2 foot just in case I needed it somewhere, and then I had another one that I cut, another 2 foot one that I cut into 1 foot, just so I had the sizes that I needed for the different spaces, right? Very handsy right now. Midway, somehow I switched the 2 spacers I was using, and one was just slightly off, just slightly less than 1 inch. So it did kind of get off center, and I didn't notice it at first because once you're just staring at this, it all looks the same. So once Austin had come back and took a look, he's like, hey, I think this might be. So he was checking it, and he did. I pulled them back off and helped him get the old nails out, and then he did re-tack them up to give me a little break, because at that point I was like, are you kidding me? So we got that lined up. It was no big deal. And then we did have to figure, we're gonna have a weird space where the end of those black like brace bars that we put up end, and there should be a slat there. So I'll have to cut and rip another piece that would fit right there. So I waited until the next day because it was late at night by the time we finished up. So we went ahead and moved on, finished the rest of the wall. Again, we using that spacer to make sure things are level, and then just randomly check it to make sure. I had checked it midway and it was good, and I guess that's when I switched, because that was when all of a sudden things were a little bit off. So just be careful with that. And then from there, like I said, we just finished up the other side of the wall and we were ready to hang this cabinet. Now, I wish we had one more person to hang this because she was not fun, But what we did was just get it up, level it the best we can, get everything spaced and where, and then as he was just holding it, I just hurried up and screwed in to try to get it to hold in place because it was very difficult to do with just 2 people. What I've seen other people do on this video, because they do have these hangers, they were kind of weird and I didn't like them, and I asked him not to put them on there, which is why we have a brace, because I want to make sure it was nice and secure and it just looks better. But other people ran a 2x4 across the bottom and set it down to hang it, because I was like, why can't we do this if people are telling me they've hung it by themselves? So I went and did some research, and that's why they were putting a brace as a 2x4 and setting the cabinet on top of it. That way they can push it up the wall and the 2x4 helps them hold it. But I didn't want to do that. That did not match the vibe that I was going for, the look that I wanted. So we just had, and by we I mean Austin, muscled through and we got it up there, and then he secured it in, making sure it was good to go, and we love it. I love the look of it. It's not super heavy. The like one shelving unit, so there's 3 doors, only holds 20 pounds each, so keep that in mind if you're interested in possibly getting this. But it is working perfectly for what we need. I know we haven't really like used the space yet, but it literally, all that stuff that was just sitting there in the windowsill that I wanted gone, it has a home now. So very excited about that. And then we called it a night. So the next day it was raining, because that's what happens. So I pulled the saw out just for this one piece. Listen, I pulled the saw out. I couldn't go outside in the driveway because it was raining. So what I did was I pointed, if you use saws all the time, you know, but it will take all of the chippings and shoot them out like this little chute, this little pipe, so that, you know, you can collect it in one area. But I don't have a little bag or anything to cover it. So I just put it facing the driveway and I pulled it all out just for this one measurement. So I went in, I measured the length, and I went ahead and cut that down on my miter saw, and then I needed to go ahead and rip it to the size. And so they were still just slightly off from that bottom portion to the top portion. So what I did was took the smallest measurement, ripped it to that size, that way it would fit completely flush on one side, and it was just slightly off on the other, but the cabinet hides it, so not too worried about it. And then tacked that up. From there, I needed to fill in all of the holes where the brad nails went in. This is optional, but I do think it's worth it. It's a little tedious and annoying, but it looks 1,000 times better and way more professional if you do this step. So I just filled all of that in, let it dry, and then gave it a sanding. Now I will say this plywood I used did, I wouldn't say splintered up, but it roughed up a little bit once the surface got wet with the paint. So when I was sanding it, I did sand the whole long thing. It still has texture to it, but I like that. It looks a little more rugged. So just slightly sanded the entire top, and then sanded all those places that I patched, took that same roller and the paint and just rolled over everything to make it look nice and finished. And I'm very, very happy with how this wall turned out. From the moment we got this house and he said he wanted that room to be his gym, I had this vision in my head, and I'm just so happy the vision actually came to life and looks exactly how I wanted it to. So I'm so excited to have this accent wall done. That way we can pull the weight rack back over and have this space. I do think it helps brighten it up just a little bit, because, you know, the walls are black, and it really gives this room a lot of character. The next thing we needed to do was make sure that his pull-up bar got hung. So we went ahead and hung that above the door. And then the surprise that I had talked about in the previous video was this really awesome dip bar that I got from Valor Fitness. It is great quality. It's really sturdy. It's really nice. But unfortunately, it just really doesn't work with our space. So the reason I got it is because it mounts to the wall and it can fold up flush. Well, mostly flush. And he currently uses the bike that you see here for his cardio, but also for the dipping. And so I really wanted to get that out of that space and put it elsewhere. That way it's not, I don't know, to me it's an eyesore, but it also just takes up a lot, like awkward room. So I wanted to get that out and have him still have a dip bar that he can use, but it just isn't going to mount properly to our space. And the last thing I want to do is have it somehow rip out of the wall and injure him or cause any problems. So we are going to send that back and just do this for now and see if there's a better option. it's just we have limited wall space, studs and things, and so we'd have to do something to really shimmy and rig it up, and I just really don't want to do that. So we're gonna send that back. But I will say, we to get our hands on it. It was great quality and really, really awesome. It's the same people who make the cable machine that we have. So we went ahead and bypassed that, and then we needed to hang all of the mirrors, all but one. We do have a big mirror that's going to go behind the squat rack, but since we're still like half moved in, well, I'm 3/4 moved in, we don't know where the little hangers are. They're somewhere in a box that's somewhere in the garage, so we have to find those. So there will be a mirror behind there, but that's for another day. And then we hung all of the mirrors across the back wall. Now these mirrors are just those cheap Maystay mirrors that you can get from Walmart. We did have these in our previous home gym too, so we spaced and kind of talked through how we wanted it to look. And then we just used one of the boards from the accent wall that's ripped for 2 inches, and used that and did the same way. Used it as like a little brace to keep everything spaced equally and help keep it straight, which worked out really, really well. It was a lot easier this time around than the last time we hung things without it. So I would suggest that if you have the means to rip a board to the space size that you need, that's nice and long so you can keep things level. So we hung the first mirror, made sure it was nice and level, and then just based everything off of that with the spacing and hanging them on the walls. And all we did was use the Velcro command strips and stuck them on there really, really good. We did this in the previous home gym, and they were up for probably 2 years. So they worked really, really well. I will say that these Maystay mirrors, because they are cheap, like the backing is just kind of like thick cardboard paper or like paper, and so it can rip easily. And once we took them off of the walls previously, some of the corners did peel. So what I did is went through every single one of those mirrors and hot glued that back to make sure it was nice and secure, that it wasn't just gonna, you know, that paper stick to the wall, but then the mirror just peel off and then crash to the floor. So like I said, I just hot glued all of those corners to make sure that they were nice and secure. And then we hung those up on the walls, and it was starting to look so good in there. I'm so pleased with how this is turning out. Please let me know what you guys think. Give me a thumbs up if you think we did a good job here. It would mean so much to us. We've put so much work into this space, and we're just so excited to finally get to use it and yeah, bring it all to life and see the full vision come through. So I will kind of go through here and show you again, in the previous video I showed you the light that we have. I will link that in the description if you're curious about it. It's really cool little LED light slash fan, and then I'll go through all of this here. It's a squat machine, or sorry, it's like a bench and squat rack. So we have that. We have that he has picked up. He's had that for a while, and I think it's by Fitness Gear. And then we have a Total Gym. I'll put here what the actual one it is because I don't remember. That was a gift from some lovely family members. They are amazing and very supportive in our wants and needs and dreams. So very thankful to have that. We also have this cable machine. Again, this is by Valor Fitness. We've had it since 2020 with no issues at all. Really good quality. We love it. It's one of the our favorite pieces in the gym. We have a weight rack that we did pick up just off of Facebook Marketplace, along with all of the weights. So we didn't get them together, but we love Facebook Marketplace whenever you're looking for gym equipment because it can get so expensive. So pick that up from Facebook Marketplace to finally have a place. We just had all of our weights laying on the floor for a long time to get everything up off the floor. And then we have these yoga mats. I picked them up off of Amazon. They've been really great. Even if we do have shoes on, they've held up really well. We've used them quite a lot. I would say pretty much every workout we do end up on a yoga mat somewhere. So yeah, then he has his punching bags and stuff, obviously Everlast brand, as you can see here. And then the spin bike, which like I said, he uses it for actually like cardio, but also as the dip bar because it has really strong handlebars. And then the last piece of equipment here is his pull-up bar. He loves this thing. We also got that off of Amazon. So I can link all of that down in the description if you guys are curious or want to check out more, if you're looking for any of that type of equipment. And then again, that dip bar that we could not use, like I said, we never got to actually use it, but the quality is amazing. I really highly recommend Velar Fitness. I'm not affiliated with them by any means, but their response time to questions or anything through their email is immediate. They have helped me, you know, with different questions that I've had on other different equipment, guide me in the right way of what would be best for my space. A huge shout out to them because they've been really awesome. And that's pretty much all I have, guys. Like I said, please give this video a thumbs up if you think we did a good job in turning this. We are so excited for our new home gym and the space that we've created. I know Austin cannot wait to get in there. If you have any suggestions on anything that would be best or a piece of equipment you just can't live without, please shout it out. Let us hear it because we would love to know. Like I said, we have all of our little bands and things in the cabinet. So we have a lot of like that little type of stuff too. But if you, like I said, if you have something you can't live without, let us know. We really want to have the complete gym that we can, you know, as best as we can with this space. We want to make it most efficient. So if you know of a wall mount dip bar that would work really well for our space, I would love to hear it from it. Let me know. Consider subscribing to my channel. We still have a lot of home makeover left to do, along with a lot of my crafting and DIYs that I like to do. So I would love to have you here. I'm going to take you guys in for a closer look, and I'll see you next time.